we witnessed an increasing number of climate change-related disasters. China faced the challenge of post-disaster reconstruction. When calamity strikes, the level of competence and speed in disaster response spells the difference between life and death. China has shown great capabilities in crisis management. In July, record rainfall unseen in 60 years lashed central China's Henan province. Dozens died, millions of lives were upended as transportation was suspended, highways closed, and flights canceled. Authorities launched emergency services, disaster management personnel, and its army to support the rescue operation. Our reporter Xia Ruixue was there and looks back now at those disastrous events this summer.
Few people around the world had heard of Zhengzhou before the devastating rain and floods this summer. I grew up in southern China where it rains a lot, but Zhengzhou has a very typical northern China climate, windy, dry, and cold. I've been here for nearly 10 years and doesn't rain that much, even in the summer. But this summer, I saw the biggest rainstorm of my life. The rain actually lasted 3 days, but heaviest downpour was on July 20th, more than 550 millimeters, almost as much as city's average for a whole year. This is outside my apartment building. The image of floodwater pouring into the garage is still vivid in my mind. It all happened so fast. Water supplies and power were cut off, and I was trapped at home, unable to buy drinking water or candles. 3 hours later, there was no mobile network. I was completely shut off from the outside world. After being trapped without any electricity, water, and a mobile network for 24 hours, I managed to get out of my home and reunited with my colleagues. I'm now in Zhengzhou, central China's Henan province. It's Wednesday afternoon after 24 hours. On July 20th, the heaviest hour of rainfall ever recorded in China, 201.9 millimeters fell on Zhengzhou between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Around 6 p.m. that day, floodwater broke through the flood control near Wulongkou Station on Line 5 of the city's subway system. The trains inside the tunnel were filled with water, trapping passengers inside. There was an intense search and rescue effort. 14 people were found dead. It's hard to imagine a city with a population over 10 million was submerged in water. Everything ground to a halt, but social media filled with videos of local residents helping each other and volunteering to take part in rescue efforts. And we will never forget rescuers from across the country who helped the city recover. For instance, pumping water from the tunnels or garages, restoring the subway, power supplies and mobile network, and giving us food. These torrential rains tested the city's ability to withstand climate risks and people's reactions to the disaster. As a country that has suffered frequent natural disasters, many say that the country needs to enhance the system to adapt to a fast-changing climate. Xia Ruixue, CGTN, Zhengzhou, Henan Province.
Through fires and hurricanes, heat waves and flash floods, the world is seeing the effects of global warming. China says combating climate change requires a joint effort. Let's now see what the country has been doing in 2021. Brian Dorman has more.
In September, ahead of the COP26 conference, Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterated the country's goal to peak carbon emissions by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality by 2060. China says it will accelerate its low-carbon transition and push industries like manufacturing, construction, and transportation to restructure over the next 5 years and beyond. In July, the government launched its first national emissions trading scheme, too, creating the world's largest carbon market. 4.1 million tons of CO2 credits worth $32 million were traded on the first day. China is also shifting away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy. Solar, wind power, and hydropower assets in China account for more than a third of the world's total, and that's expected to grow. harboring nearly 10% of all plant species and 14% of all animals on Earth, China also sees biodiversity protection as an integral part of tackling climate issues. After 30 years of efforts, China's national treasure, the giant pandas, are no longer classified as endangered. In October, the biggest UN Biodiversity Summit in a decade, COP15, kicked off in southwest China's Kunming City. Over 100 countries jointly adopted the Kunming Declaration. The last time the world made such an agreement was more than 10 years ago. The government also announced plans to establish more national parks as the first step in building a natural protected land system. The key words this time around: ambition, but also implementation. Brian Dorman, CGTN.
On January 1st, 2021, China imposed a 10-year fishing moratorium on all natural waterways along the Yangtze River. 3 months later, the Yangtze River Conservation Law came into effect as part of efforts to boost biodiversity protection. By the end of 2021, over 80 species of fish were discovered in the section that passes through Jiangsu province. That's 10 species more compared to 2018. Now, Yangtze is China's longest river and the third longest in the world. Its location and impact on people's lives have turned it to what the Chinese nation call the Mother River. In CGTN's special series, The Mighty Yangtze, our reporters embarked on a spectacular journey. As you can see, some of the rare footage there. From the pristine Qinghai Tibet Plateau at over 4,000 meters high to cosmopolitan Shanghai at sea level. They traveled more than 6,000 kilometers to explore the importance of biodiversity protection and how we can coexist with nature as humans. The answer to this question can contribute to the pursuit for building a greener China in decades to come. Next year, the second part of the UN Biodiversity Conference will be held in China, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that and revisit the cities to see how successful China's efforts have been. All right, now let's get some more insights on China's role in combating climate change. I'm pleased to be joined by Ma Jun. He is the director of Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, a nonprofit environmental research organization. Well, Mr. Ma, thank you so much for joining us on our show. So China, as a developing country, shares the same burden of curbing emissions as developed nations. And some argue that developed economies should set and achieve more ambitious reduction goals than developing countries. And this has always been a dividing point at the UN Climate Change Conference. What is your take on this?
Thank you, Momong. I think developed countries contributed most of the historical global emissions. Meanwhile, the capacity of maintaining a sustainable climate action differs from country to country based on their own stages of economic development. In order to distribute climate duty among countries in an equitable manner, UN Convention on Climate Change has established the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, which requires the developed countries to take the lead in their action. Along with a vast socio-economic development, we need to recognize China's annual per capita CO2 output is catching up with that of Europe, but still lower than that of America and Australia. In terms of accumulated emission, it is much lower on the per capita level. To deal with the pressing common challenge, China enhanced its national contribution with a commitment to carbon neutrality before 2060. Most developed countries have pledged to go carbon neutral by 2050. So the key issue now is for developed countries to put words into action and really fulfill the pledge to compensate the least developed countries.
And also China's dual carbon target, which means the carbon peak and also the carbon neutrality targets, will make it the most efficient country in the world in terms of reducing carbon emissions. And if it's successful, the country will realize carbon neutrality from carbon peaking in the shortest time in global history. What are some of the hurdles in achieving that process?
Yeah, we need to recognize China is still going through this massive development, and it has 1.4 billion people. So So the energy supply is a crucial issue to China's social economic development. But in the meantime, this is also the biggest source of China's carbon emission. So the biggest hurdle now is how the transformation of China's energy mix, which is still dominated by fossil fuel. So in the future, China will continue to expand capacity of renewable energy, while in the meantime, the intermittent nature means that we need to build the capacity on energy storage, power storage, transformation, transmission, and the smart generation and power grid. This requires a lot of innovation and technological breakthroughs.
Yeah, ambitious targets, and the clock is ticking. China is determined to achieve those goals. Thank you so much, Mr. Ma Jun, for your insights on this. Appreciate it.